So listen, the one thing that will make or break your agency is your ability to convert cold prospects into interested prospects that are waiting to hear more about your offer. And that's what I want to discuss in today's video, because the problem is that 99% of the new agency owners have no idea of how to actually do this effectively. And that means that all of the work they do during the setup phase of their agency, it means nothing. Your ability to do effective cold outreach is everything. And maybe this is you right now. You spend day after day reaching out to prospects and they just simply won't give you the time of day. Well, in today's video, my aim is to change that, because in this video, I'm going to break down my 8-step outreach process, which over the last 6 years, I've taught to thousands of agency owners. And every single year I refine, as well as all of the coaches that we have inside of my flagship program, Agency Accelerator. Every single month, we work with countless agencies. We know what works, what doesn't work. And we've helped our students collect tens of millions of dollars in the process. So if you can listen and implement all the 8 steps of this process, you're gonna skyrocket the growth of your agency in just a matter of weeks. So let's dive into it. Now, the first thing I wanna talk about is cold calling, because cold calling is still actually one of the most effective ways to attract prospective clients to your agency. Now listen, obviously this depends on the niche. If you're trying to sign e-commerce businesses, yeah, don't cold call them. But for pretty much all local businesses, cold calling is still very effective. And cold calling allows you to connect with your prospect because they can have a real conversation with you, unlike an email outreach or a DM outreach where it's just text on a screen. You know, it doesn't have that same, they can't hear your voice, you know, they can't hear your intonation. Now it's very important when you're doing cold outreach, you don't want to be using your personal phone number to call thousands of different businesses for obvious reasons. Now, fortunately, in the day and age we live in, there's many softwares available for that. So getting a different phone number isn't going to be an issue. If you want to get a number for cold calling, I recommend you get a Go High Level subscription. Now, obviously, we work very closely with Go High Level because we work with thousands of agencies a year, helping them grow their business. So when you join Go High Level, you get a lot of perks, bonuses, you get a 30-day free trial. We even give you extra training. So if you want to check that out, there's a link down below. But anyways, once you're inside High Level, you can set up a number in the country that you're going to be cold calling in. And one of the most useful tools that High Level offers is the ability to create a brand new number in a large majority of countries. So this means that you're going to be able to call directly through the High Level software, and you're going to be able to record every call. Now, this is a huge advantage if you are calling prospects in a different country to where you reside personally. And the fact that all calls are recorded is extremely helpful for review, and it's going to be a game changer when you try to improve your cold calling skills over time. Always remember, business owners are much more likely to pick up a cold call if the number that you're calling from is local. So if you're calling companies in the US, obviously get a +1 US number. If you're calling the UK, get a +44. And this is going to make a huge difference, as I previously said. And as mentioned, you can do this with GHL anywhere in the world. So as I said, I left a link down below for a 30-day free trial, as well as some cool bonuses if you haven't signed up yet. Now, the second thing I want to talk about, and by the way, if I look off to the side on the screen, I actually created a mural presentation, just something to visualize this. So basically everything useful from this video that I've referenced, or training or additional resources like this flowchart I created, I'll just go ahead and leave that in the description. But as I was saying, number 2 is you need to set up burner domains for outreach. Now, email outreach is the go-to outreach method when optimizing for volume. And email outreach allows you to automate the outreach process, and it allows you to reach out to thousands of prospects per month without writing each email personally. And as exciting as this is, please don't make the same mistakes everyone else makes. Many beginners want to get a single domain for their agencies and then just start spamming emails to thousands of businesses. Let me make this clear. Do not do this, because when you send thousands of emails from a single domain, especially when it's fresh, you're going to run the risk of your primary domain getting blacklisted, which means your main agency email domain should primarily be used for internal communication, software integration, communication with clients. The point is anything that's genuinely important. But for cold outreach, that's where you want to use burner domains. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go to GoDaddy or Namecheap or whatever you use and just purchase multiple burner domains that relate directly to your main domain. For example, if I was to buy a burner domain for IG Media, imagine your agency is called I have this old wallet. So your domain is goyard.com as an example. You would then buy goyard.io, goyard.net, goyardagency.com, goyard-agency.com, goyard-agency.io. You get the point. Just try to make it as simple as possible, and then you can use .io, .net. You don't want to use a country-related domain. So for example, don't do a .co.uk, which is for UK specifically, unless you are literally only doing outreach to British-based businesses. Because once again, similar to the phone number thing, people are going to be less likely to respond. Now, by purchasing multiple burner domains and running cold outreach through burners, you're going to bypass the risk of your primary domain getting banned, and you inevitably increase the amount of outreach messages that you're able to send per day. Then we get to warming up email accounts. Now, warming up emails is the process used to ensure emails are delivered to your prospect's primary mailbox, not their junk or their spam. Now, when you create a new email and you start sending hundreds of messages a day from that account, what's going to happen is that account will be flagged as spam. And this means that all of your emails will end up in spam or junk, never ever to be seen by your prospects, which is why it is so crucial that you warm up all of your email accounts properly. Now, I suggest a company called Lemlist. They have a tool called LemWarm, which is a free warm-up software to make sure the process is as efficient as possible. And maybe I might be a little biased because the founder and owner of Lemlist, Guillaume, he actually has 17 modules inside of my flagship program, Agency Accelerator, where he teaches everything you need to know about cold email outreach, considering he's the guy who owns the company that all of the email outreach experts, they use his software. He's basically like the top of the top kingpin when it comes to cold outreach. So he teaches inside of Agency Accelerator, but outside of that, I was using Lemlist and LemWarm back in 2020. Now, I do remember my frustration back then because this process would take anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks. And it is a little frustrating just getting things up and running, but you need to make it a priority. Because quite frankly, there's no point sending thousands of emails and then they all end up in spam or junk. Now, the next thing is we need to set up your socials for DM outreach success. When you're sending direct messages to prospects from a platform like Instagram, the first thing a prospect will do is click on your profile to get a better understanding of who you are. Literally in a split second, the prospect will get their first impression of you. So because of that, it's extremely important that their first impression of you is a positive one. No business owner wants to see photos of you shotgunning beers, photos of your first fishing trip when you were 14, or a bio that looks like it was written by someone who can't type full sentences. If you want to do that, have a private Instagram or a private profile where you can just mess around with your friends. But when it comes to business, they want to see someone who looks like they are at a high level. Someone who takes pride in themselves, the way they present themselves, and someone who looks like they're actually capable of helping them grow their business. So this means that you need a clean headshot as your profile picture, a sharp professional bio, and some high quality posts that give the prospect the perception that you mean business. The way that you portray yourself to your prospect is make or break. So make sure you ask yourself the question, if I got a DM from my profile, would I respond based on first impressions? So let me give you a few tips to optimize your social media before cold outreach. As I said, a good headshot profile picture, a well-written bio mentioning your agency, and possibly tagging the page. For example, you could say building at put your agency or founder of at your agency. You also want to change your profile to a business page so that way you can track more insights. You also want to keep the page semi-active by posting some reels, maybe some stories, and anything you post needs to be high quality when you're first starting out. Your photos should be candid. And if you can, try to make it impressive. You know, if you have a meeting in a fancy boardroom, if you're doing travel for business, listen, obviously on social media, you can portray yourself in a certain way. And there's no shame in that. You want to show your best version of yourself on social media. And next thing, and I know this is quite funny, but be conscious of who you follow. Sometimes I see these business people, and then if you go look at their Instagram, they're following a bunch of Instagram baddies. Once again, if you want to follow some Insta baddies, go do that on your private page because you'll be surprised. A lot of businesses and a lot of business owners will check. They're like, oh, I wonder who he follows, or I wonder who she follows. So those are just a couple tips there for you. Next, we need to create your outreach scripts. When writing effective outreach scripts, there are 3 key aspects that should always be included. The first is highlight prospect pain points. It's a sad truth of life, but people run away from pain more than they run towards pleasure. So by understanding the fundamental problem your ideal client faces and presenting this to them when doing cold outreach, you achieve 2 things. First, the prospect feels understood. And second, you remind them of the pain that they're currently feeling. Highlighting a pain point early will often lead to a prospect feeling like the message or the call to action is directly relevant to them, which will lead to more interest in what is to follow. Now you might be thinking, okay, cool, that sounds nice, but like, how do I know the pain points of my prospect? And this is why niche research is so important. Most business owners in your niche are going to face similar problems. So before you even start outreach, you need to get in contact with the business owners in your niche and ask them questions directly. Read forums, become obsessed, understand the business owners that you're speaking to, what keeps them up at night, what makes them toss and turn. So when you're talking to business owners, ask them how they get clients. Ask them what their most difficult times are. Ask them what factors impact their ability to get clients. Now let's imagine that you're doing lead generation using Facebook ads for landscaping companies. A couple things we know already. Landscaping is a seasonal service, and it also tends to be a business model with high overhead costs such as staff, machinery, vehicles. So if you're reaching out to landscaping companies just before winter starts, which is the time where most business owners in that industry are stressed about the next few months because of the seasonality. If you open outreach by asking them if they're worried about the next few months because winter is coming, that may interest them enough to keep reading because you understood their problem. You are literally calling out the fear that they're currently facing. Now, let's say it's not winter. Well, then you need to focus on a different pain point. Let's say you start off your outreach by asking whether their overhead costs play on their mind on days when they don't have much work, because this is definitely something that worries them. Make it as specific as possible. Listen, I don't know the answer to this, but if you find out landscaping companies, what's the most expensive machine that they have to purchase? As an example, let's say one of the hooks is you say, as a landscaping business owner, do you ever sit at night and wonder why you spend $8,000 on that new lawnmower when it's a struggle just to even get enough customers to justify that cost? That's a hook as an example. Then you transition. Well, that's what my clients used to worry about, not anymore. Something along those lines, but you're calling out their pain point. You're making it clear that you have an understanding of the industry and what a good lawnmower goes for in that industry. And this is literally me just chatting shit in 20 seconds about an industry that I have no clue about. I've never turned on a lawnmower in my life. So I'm literally just spewing some shit here. But hopefully this gives you a bit of an understanding of how you call out pain points and then how you relate that to build credibility and say that that's what my clients used to struggle with, but not anymore. And now instantly in your hook, you're building a pain point and then you're already saying that there's a solution and that your clients are benefiting from that solution as it currently stands. So I say this not as gospel. And as I said, I just made this up on the spot. If I actually had time to write the copy, I'm sure I could think of some better hooks, but hopefully mentally it just gets your mind thinking of how to actually structure your outreach. Now, the next thing is you want to build some emotional buy-in. And businesses are often built on emotion. And quite frankly, this is where selling the dream becomes important. Every business out there does it. Literally every business. So when leading with the problem and backing it up with the outcome that you guarantee, you can stimulate emotional buy-in from the prospect. And as I said, every company does this. I remember, I will never ever forget, there was one time in 2019, I was in Monaco and it was just such a hot summer's day. And I was about to sit down at a cafe with my friend right in front of where the casino is in that like little plaza. And I remember there was a bit of a line and we were about to get seated and I'm just watching this person pour this Coca-Cola into ice and then lemon. And literally in my entire life, I always thought those Coca-Cola ads are so dumb. There's no ROI on them. And in that moment, I thought about all those ads, you know, where I remember one where the Coca-Cola would be like rushing through a mountain. This is before a movie started playing in the cinema. And it would make the sound of whoosh, crackle, 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 crackle. Like just that sound of Coca-Cola once you pour in the glass. And that was probably around 2 years into me transitioning from having a creative agency to an advertising agency. And it just taught me such an important lesson, which is every company on earth, even if it's Coca-Cola, it doesn't matter who it is, all of them try to get an emotional buy-in and all of them sell you a dream of some sort. So when you do this, your potential clients are going to start to feel what it would be like to solve the pain point that you just mentioned and what it would feel like on the other end of it. So let's use the landscaping example from above. If you have highlighted that you understand their problem with seasonality and you back up the problem that you have just highlighted with something along the lines of, what if I told you that winter will be a period you look forward to because I help landscaping businesses like yours stay at full capacity all year round, not just in summer? Well, they automatically feel relief just by the thought of not worrying about winter every year. Your prospect starts to feel like they instantly need to know more. Then you want to make the opportunity a no-brainer, because once they have been made aware of the problem and they have emotionally felt what it would feel like to solve that problem, all you need to do is just guide them to a yes by putting a no-brainer opportunity in front of them. For example, if your offer includes a guarantee and you state that if you don't achieve the promised outcome, the prospect doesn't pay, well, in that case, the opportunity becomes so good that the prospect would have to be crazy to pass up the opportunity to at least have a discussion. And this is something very important, by the way. I see beginners make this mistake sometimes. I want you to notice how we've actually sold the meeting, not the service. You want to sell the meeting. You're not mentioning the system you're going to use, the price that they're going to need to pay, or anything of that nature. You are simply highlighting the pain point, stating the outcome, and making it a no-brainer to explore the opportunity. Doesn't mean to sign, doesn't mean that they pay you in that moment. Just explore the opportunity. And that opportunity, your sales call or your sales meeting, whatever it is your chance to actually get them over the line. Now, the next thing I wanted to make clear is that when you are doing cold outreach, it is crucial to set measurable targets and track the outreach you're doing. Because without goals and data, you are blind. So before sending your first outreach message, you need to have systems in place to allow you to track the outreach that you're doing. You need to be tracking a variety of metrics, so that way you can understand what form of outreach is working best. Whether that's to move away from a particular outreach channel and whether your outreach scripts need improvement. And you can do this by using a very simple table that tracks all of the metrics that you need, exactly like this little table that I'm gonna show on screen right now. Once again, this is one of the resources as I was creating this training. Now, for each outreach method, particular metrics will give you the clarity that you need. So you must keep track of these daily, so that way you have a close pulse on what's going on with your outreach. So they are as follows. For emails, you wanna track your total sends, your open rate, your response rate, your bounce rate, and your book rate. For DMs, you want to have total sends, response rate, positive responses, and booking rate. For cold calls, you want to have your total calls, your number of conversations, your appointments booked, and then your booking rate percentage. Now, when you're just getting started, you may lack clear expectations. In my experience, these are the metrics that you need to be aiming for when embarking on cold outreach. Just so you have some rough KPIs, hopefully you guys do better than this, but just some realistic rough KPIs. If you send 100 emails, you should get 1 meeting. If you send 80 DMs, you should get 1 meeting. If you have 25 cold call conversations, not actually calls, but I'm talking about conversations, and that should equate to 1 meeting. Now, by setting up tracking for each outreach method and staying organized, you will start to pick up trends, and you will quickly start understanding which outreach methods are performing the best for you, and also whether the quality of your outreach is improving or declining on a day-by-day basis. And this is going to allow you to make educated decisions when deciding to tweak scripts or even move away from an outreach method completely. And if you are seeing incredible results for one of your outreach methods, you also have the option of doubling down more on that specific method and putting more effort into the chosen method. Now let's talk about stress testing by hitting outreach thresholds. You need to remember that volume matters when testing. Testing at scale will eliminate outliers and ultimately luck as well. So let's use an example with medical insurance. When pharmaceutical companies test new medications entering the market, they don't test it to 10 people and then take that result as a fact. That would be very, very concerning if they did. They test on tens of thousands of people to make sure they eliminate luck and get a full understanding of the effects. And you need to do the same. You need to make sure you are increasing the number of messages you send as much as possible, because this is going to give you a clearer picture and it's going to give you a better understanding of what's working and what isn't, if, like I mentioned before, you're tracking the data correctly. Now, I suggest setting daily outreach thresholds that you need to hit, but every month, the numbers I would hit are as following. Let's call it the bronze tier. It's going to be $2,000 a month. If you got a silver medal, it will be $3,000 per month. And if you won gold at the Olympics of agency outreach, it'll be $4,000 per month. The bronze standard is the bare minimum that you should be hitting on a monthly basis. And that's $2,000 per month translates to approximately 100 attempts per day. Obviously, some days you're going to take days off. So by hitting the bronze standard with a bit of luck, you could get a client or two over the line within that month. Now, the bronze standard is a good goal to have when you're first starting, but if you're truly serious about building an agency, I think you can up it and go for 3,000 attempts per month, or around 150 per day. If your outreach is at a good standard, you should be landing a decent amount of meetings and setting yourself up to close a few of those clients a month. Now, the gold standard is what everyone should be striving for. If your outreach scripts are decent and something isn't going terribly wrong inside of them, you're pretty much guaranteed to sign a client or two. And next, we need to talk about iteration-driven improvement, because a common mistake new agency owners make when outreach just isn't particularly working is that they don't make one tweak. They just change absolutely everything. And all that this does is it takes you back to square one, because you have no idea what was holding you back in the first place. Change elements of your script and see how it impacts the outcomes. This is how you're going to gain clarity. So let's use email scripts as an example. If your open rates are low, you don't need to change the whole script. Simply play around with a new subject line and see how it impacts open rates. If you aren't getting responses, but your open rates are improving, well, then keep the subject line the same. Just tweak the hook and see how it impacts the responses. Because quite frankly, the point of tracking and testing is to give you clarity. You need to understand what is working and what isn't. So by changing everything over and over, you might see small improvements now and again, but you are not isolating and dealing with the problem. And by making small tweaks over time, you're gonna start to see continuous improvement. All right, so now that I've covered the 8-step process to help you succeed with your cold outreach, let's talk about some general fundamentals, because there are certain rules when doing cold outreach that remain true regardless of your niche, your service, or your method of outreach. I already mentioned this earlier, but you need to sell the meeting, not the service. It really is one of the biggest mistakes made during the outreach process is that they try to get prospects on the meeting by explaining the service. Your prospects don't care about your service. The only thing they care about is the promised outcome. How you actually achieve it, they don't really give a shit. Think about it. A travel agency doesn't sell you the long lines at the airport or the uncomfortable flight or the shitty taxi to the accommodation. They sell you the outcome of lying on the beach, sipping an ice cold cocktail. That way you can relax and get away from the mess and the rush of everyday life. As I said, they don't really care how you fix a problem in the moment. They just want to know that you understand the problem and you can get them to their desired outcome. Now, when doing cold outreach, the minimum hygiene standard is to get clarity from every prospect on your list. If your prospect doesn't reply to you, follow up until they do. It's better to get a message back saying, "No thanks, take me off your list," and a lot of times much ruder messages than that. But honestly, you're better off someone swearing at you and going, "Why are you messaging me?" all this stuff. At least that way you can take them off the list and it's a no in terms of your pipeline. Then complete radio silence. Complete radio silence doesn't give you any clarity or any feedback. So with this, at least you know where you stand and you've squeezed every last bit out of your lead list. In this game, a negative response is better than no response at all. Because as I said, at least you have clarity and you can move on to other prospects that may be interested. The real sauce, let's call it, is in consistent follow-up. And you want to use a multi-channel outreach system. When doing cold outreach, it is imperative to meet your prospects where they are at. You will be at a major disadvantage if you're only using one form of outreach, because some prospects may prefer email, others only use their phones, and some others may be active on particular social media platforms. By utilizing different platforms, you increase the chances of your prospects seeing your offer. But obviously you want to keep this within reason. If your niche is lawyers, it's very unlikely they're going to respond to your Instagram DMs. They are more likely to see an email, and then they tend to be active on platforms like LinkedIn. So be strategic about what platforms you use, but make sure that you have a multi-channel approach. There is nothing wrong with sending a message to the same prospect on 2 different platforms. Honestly, if anything, it helps reiterate the idea in the prospect's mind, leading to a higher chance of getting meetings booked. Now, in most cases, I suggest you initially focus on emails, direct messages, and cold calling. And once you have tested effectively, move away from underperforming methods and instead move to those that are performing well. The next thing I want to talk about is just don't be boring. The overall goal of cold outreach is to get replies and to book in sales calls, but you need to ask yourself, what actually triggers a prospect to book that meeting with you? It's simple. You need to stand out. You don't need to do anything crazy, do any backflips, this, that, but just don't send them the same generic bullshit that everyone else is sending because you're going to end up with the same result. You need to capture the attention of the prospect by being different. And one of the best ways you can do this is by personalizing your outreach efforts. Do some research on the business and use that research to address the business owner by name, to include something specific about that business, and to address a real problem that their business may be facing. By the way, you can get very cheap VAs to do this, and these days you can even use AI to plug in some of that stuff so you don't need to do the research yourself. Now, another way you can stand out is by using some form of humor that's relevant to your message or your niche. New agency owners tend to take themselves very seriously and come across, very, very formal. But the goal here is to stand out and build some human connection. So by using personalization and some humor, if it is true and authentic to you. I have a specific sense of humor, so does everyone else. I shouldn't try to use this sense of humor if it doesn't relate to me. So if your outreach is generic, change it, because generic blends in and you are trying to stand out. So now that you have every bit of technical advice that you need to succeed, there's only one last thing that could hold you back. And that's your mindset. You need to develop the correct cold outreach mindset so that way you can tackle cold outreach effectively. Cold outreach takes resilience and effort. There are 3 fundamental elements you need to understand before you get started. You need to get numb to no's. You won't be doing cold outreach forever, and consistency is everything. You need to make peace with the fact that you're gonna get rejected. Before you start embarking on your cold outreach journey, you need to mentally prepare yourself for that rejection. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that every single prospect you call is gonna be over the moon excited about your offer, and they're like, yeah, get me on a call, I would love to hear more. This will not always be an easy road. It will be tough at times, and that is why it's worth doing. And the other thing you need to keep in mind is that as you test and improve your cold outreach strategies, the yeses that you get will become more frequent. So really use the early stages of your outreach as a learning process. If you book a meeting every 50 outreach attempts, that's a great starting point. So focus on the inputs and don't let outcomes impact your resilience. Make peace with rejection and go into cold outreach with the right mindset. I've seen so many highly motivated agency owners give up during the cold outreach stage because it sucks. And that's why I really need you to change your mindset during this phase, because as I said, it's not forever. So you need to separate yourself from the outcome and continue focusing on the inputs for the first few weeks. All it takes is 1 or 2 clients to really get some cash flow into your agency. Because once you have cash flow, you can reinvest into automating your outreach process. When you're starting out, you need to understand the outreach process. You need to test effectively, and you need to gain clarity on what methods and what word tracks are working. But if you do this correctly, you will land that first client, and this will become a reinvestment client, because you can use that income and outsource the lead sourcing and the cold outreach messages to virtual assistants. And this is going to increase the amount of cold outreach that your agency does, but it's also going to free up your time so that way you can improve other areas of the business. So take this information in and make peace with the fact that it's going to be tough, but it doesn't last forever. Honestly, a month or 2 of dedication and resilience can be enough to change your life. The number 1 differentiator between the agencies that succeed and the ones that don't is consistency. The key is to focus on daily inputs, setting daily targets, and hitting those targets day in and day out. And I will be completely upfront. If you cannot be bothered to get up every day and hit your outreach targets, well then maybe this business isn't for you. And in fact, I hate to say it, maybe business isn't for you in general. Get your mindset right and make peace with the fact that you need to be doing cold outreach every single day on a consistent basis, and you need to have a goal-oriented mindset. The ability not to only set daily input goals, but the ability to hit them every single day. Being disciplined enough to stick to the numbers you set for yourself, regardless of what is going on in your personal life, will be the fundamentals to your success. So, I know that I gave you a lot of information today, but I really urge you to act more than you think. Remember, imperfect action will beat no action every single time. So use this information as a guide, but just get going, just get started, because the longer you wait, the longer the results will take. Set yourself some targets, hit those targets, keep improving, and watch the results start to come. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. The resources will be down below. And as always, I'm watching from afar and I'm rooting for you.